Well, hello and welcome to the first ever Tweed Renegades TV. I'm Plato Sandylands. Now, we've created this show to fill what we believe is a huge gap in the market. It's for those of you who just can't get enough smugness and pomposity in your life, but would prefer it didn't come from Jonathan Holmes. And unlike Media Watch, you're not paying a cent for us. Every episode we hope to bring you all the smugness and pomposity your heart could desire as we scathingly critique the love media's treatment of politics and society. Well, let's turn our attention to our lucky first target. It's Wayne Swan, who finally came out of the closet a couple of weeks ago and admitted what everybody has known for a long time. This mythical invention known as a Wayne Swan surplus is indeed about as realistic as Joan Rivers' face. But despite the rest of the country reeling from shock and disbelief that the ALP could break a core promise, Malcolm Maiden in The Age was as chipper as can be.
Wayne Swan's decision to jettison Labor's commitment to get the budget into surplus next year is only a big deal for the economy and perceptions of its management if Labor does what Swan says it won't. Swan's central proposition is correct. The hole has mainly been caused by lower commodity prices and competitive pressures on the economy that are partly related to the dollar's refusal to follow commodity prices down. But Swan has taken the advice of experts. If the economy stays weak, there may be room for additional discretionary expenditure on productivity-enhancing national infrastructure, for example.
Sorry, are we talking about the same economy here? Or is there a secret double economy that only Fairfax and ABC journalists are privy to? ABC News also hints at its existence in this ecstatic reference for Wayne Swan's monetary credentials.
Economists are relieved the federal government is abandoning its push for a surplus, labelling it a sensible, pragmatic and realistic decision. For months they've been concerned the government's penny pinching to keep the surplus dream alive had the potential to slow growth and jobs. But business leaders, market economists and some in Labor's own ranks had been urging the government to walk away from its pledge. Leading economist Chris Richardson says ditching the surplus is a triumph of common sense. JP Morgan chief economist Stephen Walters also welcomes the announcement and says a return to surplus in this economic cycle is hard to argue against.
Well, naturally, banksters hate to see people in debt unless it's necessary.
Now Mr. Swan says the economy comes before politics, stressing the government has delivered responsible economic management for the past 5 years. At the end of the day, I don't care about the political outcomes, I care about the economic outcomes, he said.
Very big of Swan to put the interests of the country ahead of playing politics. We're all relieved to know that he's going to continue to leave the budget in $230 billion debt and rising, with no light at the end of the tunnel, and not a single surplus to Swan's name despite at least 200 promises by Labor for a 2012-2013 surplus.
The budget comes with a big fat made in China stamp, Mr. Richards had said. It doesn't matter which politician in Canberra promises what, if China has a bad year, the budget's going to have a bad year. To pretend otherwise is dumb.
Well, let's just remind Mr. Richardson of how easy a surplus could be. Since Swan took office, he spent $14 billion building unnecessary school halls at twice the going rate, 30-odd billion to date and rising on an outdated broadband network so that rich farmers can torrent movies as quickly as their city brethren. But maybe this is the productivity-enhancing national infrastructure that Malcolm Maiden referred to. Or maybe Maiden was referring to the $308 million Gillard spent on providing digital set-top boxes to pensioners so they can watch the official state propaganda channel in digital clarity. And let's not forget the $38 million Gillard splashed out to help African and Pacific nations adapt to climate change. Or the $7 billion stolen from us to send to our globalist masters in the IMF. Or the $60 billion blown on giving single mothers extra pokies money in the guise of stimulus spending. Over $111 billion of your money wasted. And by the way, not spent because of the global economic crisis, but spent because Wayne Swan's a kleptomaniac who's addicted to spending other people's money. Of course, Swan had no trouble taking the credit for Australia's relative prosperity during the mining boom. Let's get one thing clear, Wayne. You didn't do anything to help Australia through the global financial crisis. The reason Australia has come through relatively unscathed to date is because we actually had an industry, mining. Industry, of course, is something of a luxury to Western nations. So, of course, being the socialist that you are, you tried to squeeze the life out of the only thing keeping the country afloat by imposing a 30% tax on it. But you couldn't even get that right, and so far the tax has raised no revenue. So let's get this straight, Wayne. It wasn't because of you, it was in spite of you. All governments can do with the economy is steal other people's money and redistribute it. But of course, to the love media, Swan can do no wrong. When there's good economic news, it's all thanks to him. But upon the blown surplus announcement, when Swan's many manifestly moronic monetary methods finally burst the bubble of this bumbling bent buffoon, the love media calmly declared that Swan's hands are tied and it's all due to world economic conditions. Swan gets credit for the successes, but never the failures. And there's more good news from Australia Central Television, aka the ABC. We might even lose our AAA credit rating.
There's a slim chance the government's resignation to recording another deficit will mean Australia loses its top credit rating with the world's major rating agencies. Saul Eslake, chief economist with Bank of America Merrill Lynch, says that may not be a bad thing and that it would be helpful in bringing down the dollar.
Cheers!
And lastly, Lenore Taylor in the Fairfax rag summed up St. Swan's budget buggery in these glowing terms. Economically, he was doing the right thing. In fact, it was likely to be counterproductive to keep cutting government spending to meet what was a purely political pledge.
She concludes with a prophetic warning.
But having themselves promised to always deliver surpluses, having set a surplus next year is absolutely vital for the long-term welfare of the Australian people. When it comes to tally their election promises in the new year, in very same economic circumstances, the coalition will face its own fiscal problems.
Is that a threat? The problems the coalition faces are obvious. If they break their promise, you and the rest of your comrades will suddenly check your job description and find that holding the government to account is in there somewhere. Is it any wonder the government's two-party preferred standing is at a respectable 46 instead of being at 0 where it belongs? It's because they get absolutely no scrutiny from the ABC or Fairfax. Let's think about what else the media might be capable of spinning.
Building industry booming. Gillard responsible for hundreds of new residential construction projects. The houses being built will replace those burnt down by the government's pink bat scheme. Asylum seekers finally find peace, as another 300 of them drown thanks to Gillard's open borders. And while you're here, remember to take a look at the Tweed Renegades website for lots of exciting gear like this.
TweedRenegades.com